Let's set the scene. It is the late 1930s. A dictator has taken absolute control of Germany, rapidly expanding his military and aggressively bullying his European neighbors. But while politicians argued over borders, something equally explosive was happening in the scientific community. German chemists had just successfully split the uranium atom. This shows the core mechanism of nuclear fission. When a single microscopic atom is split, it releases a massive burst of kinetic energy. Chaining that reaction exponentially across millions of atoms accumulates into a bomb of unimaginable, city-leveling destructive power. The brightest minds in physics, many of whom had just fled fascist Europe, completely panicked. Knowing the stakes, legendary physicist Albert Einstein penned a desperate letter to U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, warning him that the Germans were likely building a catastrophic superweapon. Roosevelt took the threat seriously. To ensure the United States beat Nazi Germany to the bomb, he officially authorized a top-secret response. Humanity's fate now rested entirely on which nation could figure out how to translate microscopic theoretical physics into a macroscopic deployable weapon first. You cannot build a top-secret doomsday device in a downtown Chicago warehouse. You need immense space, billions of dollars, and above all, absolute secrecy. The U.S. government tapped General Leslie Groves to oversee the massive military logistics, and he recruited a deeply complex theoretical physicist named J. Robert Oppenheimer to lead the scientific charge. Together, they scoured the country and decided to build their primary laboratory in the middle of nowhere, the isolated mesas of Los Alamos, New Mexico. The government quietly gathered the smartest scientists from across the globe and shipped them out to this newly built, heavily fortified town. Almost nobody knew what was actually happening there. Spouses didn't know what their partners were building. The secrecy was so intense that the scientists and their families traveled under fake names, and the words physicist and bomb were strictly forbidden. The U.S. government had successfully compartmentalized the greatest minds on Earth into an absolute black box. Officially, they were just building a gadget. The scientists at Los Alamos were facing a monumental engineering bottleneck. Creating the core of the bomb required either enriching uranium or producing a highly unstable element called plutonium. Both of these options required an unprecedented level of industrial scale and manufacturing capabilities that simply did not exist anywhere in the world yet. Secondary secret cities popped up overnight to handle this massive manufacturing effort. Facilities like the sprawling Oak Ridge Industrial Complex in Tennessee were built to rapidly refine the necessary materials. Out at the Hanford site in Washington state, tens of thousands of everyday Americans worked tirelessly around the clock. They were literally refining radioactive materials without having a single clue what their factory was actually making. The Manhattan Project had evolved from a theoretical puzzle into the largest, most expensive, and most secretive coordinated industrial scaling effort in human history. By the spring of 1945, the situation on the global stage had drastically shifted. Hitler's regime completely collapsed, erasing the initial German threat. But in the Pacific, the United States was locked in a brutal, increasingly ferocious war against Japan. Back in New Mexico, the gadget was finally ready. In July 1945, the Trinity test validated years of theoretical math by turning the pitch-black desert night sky into a blinding, terrifying midday sun. As the scientists watched their creation obliterate the landscape, the mood shifted to pure dread. Oppenheimer famously recalled a haunting line from Hindu scripture, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." They had successfully harnessed the core energy of the atom. The United States government now had to make a choice. They wanted to coerce an immediate Japanese surrender to avoid a devastating ground invasion, while simultaneously putting on a massive show of force to intimidate Soviet leader Joseph Stalin and secure dominance in the post-war world. The dark decision was made. In August 1945, atomic bombs were dropped on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, reducing entire metropolitan areas to absolute rubble in a blinding flash of light. The staggering devastation forced the Emperor of Japan to formally announce his nation's surrender. After 6 agonizing years, the most destructive conflict in world history was over. The United States initially believed they would hold a nuclear monopoly for years to come. That assumption proved to be a deadly miscalculation. Despite the military's strict protocols, Soviet espionage at Los Alamos successfully leaked classified data, allowing the USSR to rapidly develop their own bomb. The ensuing arms race escalated quickly, with both sides developing even more devastating hydrogen weapons. This map illustrates the calculated reality of mutually assured destruction. The globe was now operating under the grim doctrine that if either superpower used their nuclear arsenal, reciprocal missile trajectories would guarantee the complete annihilation of both nations. This looming existential threat permeated everyday civilian life. Entire generations grew up under a permanent culture of nuclear dread, fully aware that total annihilation was always just a button press away. The Manhattan Project stands as an astonishing technological and collaborative achievement, yet it pried open a box that can never be closed, leaving humanity cursed with the perpetual tools for its own total destruction.